Bitcoin is trading at about $110,000. We have no shortage of choppiness in the market. There's a lot of, I would say, uncertainty when it comes to Binance. I think I saw something like $24 billion worth of assets has been withdrawn from Binance. And there's a lot of speculation to, the whole, cascading liquidation event because it was pretty much centered around Binance. Basically, what looks to be the issue allegedly is that there was a depegging with their stablecoins, and they announced that they were going to basically fix this in some sort of like update, I guess. And that was scheduled for a little bit later on this month. And pretty much what happened is during that liquidation, basically the Oracle and the stablecoin, they pretty much broke. And so it led to the big cascade of liquidations, and traders were liquidated for about $19 billion. And pretty much Binance has been in, damage control. You have like CZ, tweeting like all this like stuff about how they're going to be reimbursing people and sending, BNB back to people that were affected. There's been a lot of accusations, pretty much that Binance is going to be sued, and they're encouraging people to get their money off the exchange, because whenever something happens like this, pretty much the funds get frozen. And there's just been like a lot of just, allegedly, wash trading, or just like, I would say like malicious like price action from Binance. Like, it looks to be that they use like market makers to kind of flush the prices of different cryptos. And it just looks like a lot of just like blatant suppression and manipulation. So they're just under a lot of fire. Not to mention that there's been a lot of, I guess, whistleblowers pretty much sharing that, they're very predatory when it comes to the coin listings, and, pretty much what they're offered, or I guess what they're requesting the people that want to have their project listed on Binance. So there's just a lot of fire that's being lit under Binance. And so, I don't think that anything's necessarily going to happen to Binance. They're like the biggest player in the game. And quite frankly, those that are even like preying on like the downfall of them, you don't want that to happen, because I think that that would further speed up the process of ending this bull run. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Now, simultaneously, we are on the midst of we're in the thick of a government shutdown, and that is naturally, prolonging the ETFs and all that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of hype surrounding Solana in particular, but, obviously if the government's shut down, they can't approve any of that. And not to mention, there's a lot of like, trade war uncertainty when it comes to China and the US, and they kind of go back and forth. And I think the whole market is kind of hanging on by a thread, or in this case, like a tweet from either the leader of China, Trump, whatever. And it just seems like it's just kind of like ping-ponging around until we kind of sort this out and see, what kind of actually happens when it comes to these trade agreements and all that kind of stuff. Simultaneously, we have the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, pretty much saying that they're going to end the quantitative tightening cycle, which basically means that they're going to start, printing money, letting inflation run a little bit hot, and kind of focusing on the jobs created, because they're, they have a dual mandate, right? It's like they want to increase like the jobs, and they want to, combat inflation. But, inflation's kind of like, it's in a place where I think that they're getting comfortable with, but the jobs is just kind of like plummeting. So naturally, that's going to create a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the markets. That's also why you see like gold and silver trading at all-time highs right now. Stock market's not doing too bad, but it's pretty shaky when it comes to these like news articles. Bitcoin seems to like not catch a break, but the thing about Bitcoin is it's very volatile, and when you kind of put things into perspective, it's still massively outperformed this year, or like over like the last year. It's very underwhelming with all the short-term kind of drama going on, in my opinion. And I think that, obviously if we can get through this, I would say like consolidation / like uncertainty, maybe we kind of sweep the lows one more time, go down to like 105, worst case, maybe like, low 100s. And I think if we can get through that and we continue to push, I think that that's going to be something good going into obviously the quarter four. And there's just a lot of like doomer and gloomer kind of stuff saying, the 4-year cycle's over. And while that could be a possibility, I'm just like not in that camp right now. I think that we still have one more leg to go at the very minimum. And depending on how the liquidity cycle, the money to supply keeps increasing, and how these trade wars kind of shake out, not to mention, interest rate cuts and all that, it does shape up to look to be a little bit more optimistic, in my opinion. I think that, typically there's always like the biggest shakeouts before we have like a massive rip. And I think that there is a catch-up trade with Bitcoin in regards to like the silver and gold trade, because those are kind of like the assets and the metals and all that kind of stuff that investors go into when they lose faith in the dollar or inflation and all that. And so that was essentially why Bitcoin was even created. So, I do think that there is a catch-up trade to be made, and things are just very shaky. So wanted to bring you this time sensitive update. As always, make sure you're subscribed, share this video with a friend, and again, let me know what you guys want to see next. I'll see y'all soon. Bye.